For 3 weeks, Daniel kept a train ticket beside his laptop. It was supposed to take him toward a new city, a different life, and the woman he planned to build it with. Every morning, he moved it aside and told himself he needed one more day. Then, on the final night, Daniel decided he was ready. Maya looked at the ticket in his hand. "I don't need your answer anymore," she said. Daniel had spent his entire life trying not to make the wrong choice. He had not noticed that waiting was already making choices for him. Daniel Foster was 33 and worked as a financial analyst for a company that manufactured office furniture. His job was not exciting, but it was dependable. His salary arrived on the same day each month. His train reached the office 7 minutes before he needed it to. His reports were always checked twice. People described Daniel as careful. His managers called him reliable. His father called him sensible. Maya used to call him thoughtful. Daniel liked that word most. Thoughtful people did not leave stable jobs without a plan. They did not move cities because of one exciting opportunity. They did not make promises until they knew they could keep them. They waited until the right answer became clear. Daniel had learned early that caution could be rewarded. After university, his friend Ben joined a small technology company that promised rapid growth. Daniel chose a quieter corporate position with predictable hours. Ben's company closed 6 months later. At work, people who made quick decisions sometimes made visible mistakes. Daniel rarely did. He checked the numbers, checked the assumptions behind them, and waited until he was certain. His caution had protected him often enough that he began to treat uncertainty as a warning. Daniel kept a black notebook in the top drawer of his desk. Whenever an important choice appeared, he opened to a fresh page and divided it down the middle. Stay or leave. Apply or wait. Buy or continue saving. Say yes or ask for more time. The notebook did not always help him decide, but it made postponing the decision feel productive. By the time Maya received the job offer, only a few blank pages remained. She had worked as an interior designer for the same small studio for 4 years. The projects were safe and repetitive. She had begun to feel as though she spent her life designing rooms for people brave enough to change theirs. The new position was in Belford. Daniel and Maya had visited the city twice. They had walked along the river, pointed at apartment windows, and imagined which neighborhood they might live in one day. Belford had become part of the future they described whenever the present felt too permanent. They would move when Daniel's work became less demanding, when they had saved a little more, when the market felt safer, when the timing was right. Then Maya received an email offering her better pay, larger projects, and the chance to lead a small team. She had 3 weeks to respond. She showed Daniel the email at their kitchen table. For a moment, he looked as excited as she felt. He asked about the studio, the salary, and the projects. Then his expression changed. Maya recognized it immediately. "How long do you need?" she asked. Daniel reread the offer. "A few days." She waited. "I'm not saying no," he added. "I just don't want us to rush." Maya looked around the apartment they had been promising to leave for 3 years. "This isn't sudden, Daniel." That evening, he opened his notebook. At the top of the page, he wrote "move" on one side and "stay" on the other. Under "move," he listed Maya's opportunity, a new city, and a fresh start. Under "stay," he listed his salary, their savings, and the possibility of a future promotion. The columns looked almost equal. So Daniel opened his laptop. He compared neighborhoods, local salaries, moving costs, and rental prices. He tried to calculate what their life would look like after 6 months, 1 year, and 5 years. But each answer exposed something else he could not know. What if Maya hated the new studio? What if Daniel could not find a position at the same level? What if they moved and wished they had stayed? Maya sent him photographs of 2 apartments near the river. Daniel replied with a spreadsheet. At first, she smiled. Daniel could turn anything into a calculation. But the days continued passing, and the spreadsheet became longer while their conversation became shorter. Daniel asked his father for advice. His father had worked for the same insurance company for 27 years. "A stable job is worth more than people realize," he said. Daniel asked Ben, whose failed company had since restarted without him. "You never know before you go," Ben said. "That's why it's a choice." Daniel asked his manager whether there was a future for him at the company. His manager mentioned that a team lead position might open later in the year. It was not an offer. Daniel wrote it in the notebook as though it were one. A few days before Maya's deadline, the company announced the new team leader. The role went to Marcus, a younger analyst with less experience. Daniel waited until the meeting ended, then approached his manager. "I thought I might be considered." His manager gave him an uncomfortable look. "We needed someone who was ready to take ownership now." Daniel returned to his desk and opened the notebook. Beside possible promotion, he drew a line. He did not move it to the other column. Maya managed to secure a short extension from the studio. Daniel felt relieved when she told him. For the first time in days, he slept well. That should have told him something. The relief did not come from moving closer to a decision. It came from no longer having to make one. Maya stopped sending him apartment listings. She no longer asked which neighborhood he preferred or whether he needed a second room for an office. Daniel thought she was giving him space. In reality, she had begun making plans that did not require his opinion. 2 days before the final deadline, Maya bought 2 train tickets for Saturday morning. She placed Daniel's beside his laptop. "Come with me," she said. "We'll walk around. We'll look at apartments. We don't have to solve everything before we get there." Daniel touched the edge of the ticket. "I will." The next morning, he moved it aside to open his laptop. That afternoon, he placed his notebook over it. By Friday evening, a faint coffee stain marked one corner. Maya packed a small suitcase in the bedroom. Daniel watched from the doorway. He had expected another conversation. Instead, she folded her clothes carefully and placed them inside. "Are you going for the weekend?" he asked. "I'm taking the job." Daniel stared at her. "You accepted it?" "Yes." "I thought we were making the decision together." "We were." He crossed the room, pulled the ticket from beneath his notebook, and held it up. "Then I'll come. We should do it." Maya looked at him for a long moment. Daniel waited for relief to appear on her face. It did not. "I don't need your answer anymore." Daniel began explaining. The job market in Belford was uncertain. Their expenses could rise. His company had seemed ready to promote him. Moving without a guaranteed position would have been irresponsible. Maya listened without interrupting. "I kept thinking you needed more time," she said. "Then I realized time was the only answer you ever gave me." Daniel lowered the ticket. "I was trying to protect us." "From what?" "From making a mistake." Maya looked toward the notebook. "You were so afraid of choosing the wrong life that you never chose ours." The next morning, Daniel drove her to the station. There was no dramatic argument on the platform. Maya did not tell him to follow her. Daniel did not promise that everything would change. For a few seconds, they looked at each other through the train window. Then the carriage moved, taking Maya toward the future they had once described together. Daniel remained where he was. When he returned home, the apartment looked almost unchanged. That made it worse. Maya's chair remained at the table, slightly pulled back. A pale circle marked the place where her plant had stood beside the window. Daniel placed his unused train ticket in the wooden bowl by the door. For the next few weeks, he tried to recover what he had lost without accepting what had caused it. He applied for jobs in Belford, then declined 2 interviews because the salaries were lower than his current one. He suggested a long-distance relationship, but avoided saying when the distance would end. Maya answered his messages politely, then less often. Daniel was finally moving quickly, but only because something had already moved beyond his control. A month later, his company announced a restructuring. Daniel kept his job, but much of his work was transferred to Marcus's team. The stable position he had chosen did not disappear. It simply became smaller. Daniel still had his salary, his desk, and his morning train, but the future he had expected from them was gone. One Saturday, he began clearing the apartment. At the back of his desk drawer, he found the black notebook. He sat on the floor and opened it. The first page was 8 years old. Apply for graduate program or wait. A later page asked whether he should join Ben's company. Another asked whether he and Maya should move in together. The questions were different. The notes beneath them were not. Revisit next month, decide after review, need more information. Daniel turned through the pages. The graduate program no longer existed. Ben's company had failed, recovered, and grown without him. The apartment he had once considered had been sold years earlier. Some choices had disappeared so quietly that Daniel had never recognized them as losses. He had believed that refusing to choose kept every path available. Instead, he had watched those paths close one at a time. Near the end of the notebook, Daniel found Maya's Belford offer. The page was crowded with numbers, warnings, and possibilities. At the bottom, beneath everything else, he had written one word: wait. Daniel closed the notebook. For several minutes, he sat beside the packed boxes and Maya's empty chair. Then he opened his laptop. Months earlier, he had saved an advertisement for a 6-month financial planning project in another city. The salary was lower. The contract offered no permanent position. The company was small, and its future was unclear. Daniel had saved the listing because the work interested him. He had ignored it because interest was not the same as certainty. The application was still open. Daniel completed the first page, then the second. On the final screen, 2 buttons appeared: Save Draft, Submit. His hand stopped over the mouse. The familiar questions returned. What if the company failed? What if the city felt wrong? What if leaving made him miss the life he already had? Daniel could not answer them. For the first time, he did not treat that as a reason to wait. He clicked Submit. Nothing inside him became calm. He spent the next hour wondering whether he had made a mistake. But the uncertainty had arrived after the decision, not in place of it. 2 weeks later, the company offered him the position. Daniel read the email once, then he accepted. On the morning he left, he placed the unused Belford ticket inside the final page of the black notebook. He closed it and left it on the empty desk. At the station, Daniel held a new ticket in his hand. It had a destination, a platform number, and a departure time. It did not promise that the city would suit him. It did not guarantee that the job would last. It did not protect him from regret. As the train arrived, Daniel stepped toward the open door. The ticket did not promise him a better life. It only proved that this time the choice was his.